Hey everybody, welcome back to the Optometry Money Podcast, where I help ODs make better and better decisions around your money, careers, and your practices. On today's show, we're going to talk about 3 factors that can make or break your optometry cold start before it even begins. Thank you so much for listening. I am your host, Evon Mendrin, certified financial planner and owner of Optometry Wealth Advisors. And let's talk all about cold starts. Cold starting an optometry practice can be one of the most rewarding and challenging things any optometrist can do. It can be one of the most exciting and terrifying things that any optometrist can do, all in the same day and sometimes in the same hour. There is so much that goes into cold starting a practice, and there are so many ups and downs, but it does have so many benefits. You get to be your own boss. You get to have more control and freedom over your time and how you want to build your life. You have more creative freedom and control and flexibility over the practice you want to build, how you want to build your business, how you want to serve patients, who you want to serve. Is there going to be a specialty, not a specialty? The whole patient experience is within your control, so you have more creative freedom over that. And it does come with some financial benefits as well. Successful practices can be incredible cash flowing businesses and can be if built correctly, can be an asset on your balance sheet that can potentially be sold down the road for some value. So it can have substantial financial rewards too that you don't really have an opportunity to have if you're only an associate. So there are definitely benefits to starting your own business, especially from the ground up, all according to your vision. But there are definitely drawbacks. Building a new business is super, super hard. It's not easy. And it comes with additional administrative burdens and ownership burdens that you didn't have as an associate. It comes with so many extra stresses and longer hours, and there's so much that goes into it. So there's definitely drawbacks. And many of you might be thinking about whether to own or not, and there's some challenges and headwinds you might be thinking about, especially if you've recently graduated within the last 10 years. You're thinking about student loans and the ability to take on that risk of business ownership with student loans. You might be hearing about the idea that practices might be more complicated than they were in the past, or that you might be concerned about the reimbursements from vision plans and the grip that vision plans have over private practices. You might be thinking about how consolidation in private equity might be affecting private practices now and into the future. So there's all these. There could be a lot of perceptions and reasons that you're hesitating to take on that risk, and you don't need to. You don't necessarily need to. There's a whole lot of modalities and ways you can practice optometry now. Not everyone wants to, and not everyone needs to be a practice owner. You can still have a very successful career and can be successful financially without owning a practice. I wrote an article recently about the idea that there's freedom down both roads. There's freedom down life as a practice owner and life as an associate. There's benefits and drawbacks to each decision, and you just need to decide what type of freedom, what type of benefits and drawbacks you're comfortable with, you want in your life, and go that direction. But for those that want to take on the opportunity and the risk and everything that comes with business and practice ownership, for everyone that wants that, what I'm hearing from practice owners and consultants and cold start consultants is that there's still plenty of opportunity to start and build an optometry practice from the ground up. There's still plenty of opportunity for that, and it can definitely be an awesome, rewarding opportunity and experience. So today I'm going to talk about 3 factors that can make or break your optometry cold start before it even gets a chance to begin. And there's a lot that goes into preparing to cold start. You're thinking about your business plan and your vision for the practice and who you want to serve and how you want to serve them. You're thinking about your practice location and the lease and the potential build out and everything that goes with that. You're thinking about inventory, frame lines, and equipment. What equipment are you going to use as your business grows? And you're thinking about all the financial aspects and getting lending for the practice and rearranging your personal finances for all that. So there's a lot that goes into that needs to be carefully thought out and planned for. But what I'm going to talk about are all on the personal side. It's all on the personal side. It's all in addition to those things. The first thing I want to talk about, the first factor, number one, is you need to have a plan for how you're going to pay for personal expenses in your household in those first 2 to 3 years. When you start your business is not going to be able to support your lifestyle. Your business needs to have the resources that it needs in order for it to survive and then go from surviving to thriving. Yeah, you're going to have some operating cash probably from lending, and any income you're going to be receiving in those early years are you going to need to pay for ordinary business expenses, inventory, cost of goods sold, administrative expenses, utilities, your lease, probably a staff member. You're going to need to cover your practice debt payment. And depending on who your lender is, you may have interest-only payments in the beginning. You may have full payments. It just depends. So you need to be able to cover your ordinary business expenses. You need to be able to set aside money for taxes as your business becomes profitable. You need to be able to set aside cash for a cash buffer, a cash savings within the practice, and to be able to fund future reinvestment into the practice. Because in those early years, right away, you're not building the long-term vision right away. You're not building the year 10 practice. You're building the year 1 practice. You're building what you need, and you're staying as lean as possible to get this off the ground and to have a viable business and something that you can grow with. So it may take some time before you're able to start drawing money out of the business in order to fund your personal lifestyle. So it's important to have a plan for how you're going to cover your bills at home while the business is doing its thing. And this is important for a couple of reasons. Number one is that, as I mentioned, your business needs the resources that it has in order to stay viable, to survive, and to grow. Number two, there's a lot of stresses that come with building a new business. It's super hard, and there's a lot that comes with that, from patient experiences to all the different decisions you have to make as a practice owner to just struggling to get new patients in the practice. So there's a lot of stresses that come with that, both in the business and in the household. And having a game plan to have your bills paid early on gives you a greater sense of ease and helps ease the stress, at least in that one area in your household. That's one thing you don't have to be stressing about. And that also allows you to think more strategically and long-term about the decisions you make in the practice. You don't have to make desperate short-term decisions because you have to get money in now. You can allow the business to grow as you want it, knowing you have those bills at home covered. Number three, if you're not able to cover your living expenses at home, you're not going to give yourself enough time as a practice owner to get your business off the ground and have enough time to allow it to grow into a viable business. You're not going to have a financial runway. So you do need that financial runway early on. And then lastly, if you're going to get lending to start the practice, which most people do, the lender's going to require you to have some game plan for how to cover your personal expenses and the practice debt. They want to make sure that this deal is going to cash flow. So they're depending on which lender you go with, they may have a requirement that you're working part-time as an associate at other practices, certain amount of days a week, or that you have a certain amount in savings or some combination of both. So the lender is going to have some sort of requirement probably, or something they want to see in terms of how you're going to cover your living expenses and the practice debt. So how do we plan to cover these bills in those first early years? Well, it doesn't have to be that complicated. It can actually be pretty straightforward. Number one, start by listing out your expenses within those first 1 to 3 years. You can do it on a year-to-year basis and then split it out monthly. But list out everything you're spending money on, line by line. And then start to trim away at things that are extra spending that are not that valuable to you or that are not important to your household. Like the business, you want to stay lean in the household and in the business. So you want to try to limit your fixed costs as much as possible while still maintaining a good lifestyle. So just number one, start to list out all of those expenses month by month for those first 1 to 3 years. Number two, list out the income sources that you have. And it could be income from your spouse. If you have a spouse that's working, that is an incredible source of income for you to help with the household. You may be already associating with another practice, so So list out all the income that's coming into the household and then subtract that from your spending to see what is that gap. What is the gap that you need to cover with savings and other income? And then put a plan together to cover those bills. It's going to be some combination of your work as an associate with other practice part-time, your spouse's income if you have spousal income, savings that you've built up for this, or just other assets. But have a plan to cover your living expenses. And this may seem like basic budgeting, and in a lot of ways it is, but this is a super important exercise and part of making sure this new business you want to build is feasible and sustainable and something you can actually do. So that's number one. Have a plan for covering your personal bills, your personal expenses for the first 1 to 3 years. Number two, the second important factor is make sure your spouse is on board. And this could be your spouse, husband, wife, partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, whoever that significant other is that relies on you day in, day out. Make sure that person is on board. And this is super important. Your practice will demand so much from you. It's going to demand so much of your time and energy and attention. You're going to be working late hours, evenings, weekends. You'll be working on administrative work, business ownership work, after hours. I've heard an OD talking about how their family would go on trips to visit grandparents and they would be working while on these trips because there's just so much that comes with that. So your business will demand so much of you. And there's so much additional stress and responsibilities that come with that. It affects your family. It affects your wife, your children. It affects your family. It affects your household. And you need to make sure that your spouse is on board with business ownership and everything that goes into that. And you need to make sure that there's good expectations about what it's going to look like, what type of commitment is going to be required from you. What do the financials look like? You need to make sure that there are good financial expectations. I think this is so important, and I've heard stories that there weren't good expectations as the business grows, and as the business owner has to take more time with the business, and in the evenings and on the weekends, and less time with the kids sometimes, and there can be tension. And there can be resentment and bitterness that grows between the spouses, and that type of tension and that type of frustration can grow and grow into something's got to give, either the practice or the relationship. Something's got to give, or in the worst cases, both. And it could negatively impact the relationship. It can negatively impact the practice. I've heard of divorces coming out of this because spouses weren't on board with the business. So make sure that whoever that person is in your life, make sure that person's on board and has good expectations with this. And I would say, in my opinion, if they're not, consider just putting it off for now. My wife and I had to go through all these same conversations. We talked for a long time about cold starting a financial planning firm from optometrists for a few years. I'd bring up the idea, we'd talk about it, what goes into it, the details, and then my wife would say, no, maybe it's not a good time. And we would agree. Okay, so we'd put it aside, time would go by, we'd bring it up again, look at it with fresh eyes, and maybe it's just still not on board, maybe we both agree. So we put it aside again. And at some point we actually said, we're not going to do this at all. But then the time came where I just felt so strongly about it that brought up the numbers again. We talked about it for a very long time, prayed about it, talked about it, really got into what it would look like and built some good expectations. And the time was right. And we both finally felt like it was a good time to move forward with that. And a big part of that, when I think about our own experience, that was right after we bought a house in one of the worst, most frustrating, stressful housing markets. We had our second child, our baby. All those different things, all those different life events might tell a lot of people like, hey, maybe this isn't a good time to do this. There's too much uncertainty in your life. But we had a plan for cash flow. We had a plan knowing the different income sources and savings we had. We knew that there was a plan for cash flow within those first 1 to 3 years. And we both, my wife and I, both had expectations that were reasonable about what this was going to look like. So make sure that person is on board, because they will be the biggest source of support and your biggest foundation to lean on throughout this whole journey. So make sure that person's on board. Number 3,
The number 3 biggest factor is to have a strong support network. Surround yourself, yes, with your family and friends. Surround yourself with people that are positive, that are optimistic. There's enough stress that comes with business ownership that you don't want to add negativity in your life. So surround yourself with people that are positive, are optimistic, and immerse yourself in your profession. Get to know your professional peers, the other optometrists around you. Learn from them. Get to know mentors that have been there and done that. Everything you're going to face as a practitioner in your new business and as a practice owner, someone has already gone through and figured out. They've already solved it. This has been done before. So get to know people in your profession who have been there and done that. Find mentors you can learn from and grow with. That is such an important part of this. And sometimes business ownership, especially early on, can be lonely. It can be lonely. So you want to surround yourself with your professional peers. Another reason why this is really important is that there are a lot of frustrations and stresses that come with business ownership, as I've mentioned a lot before. And you need to have an outlet to be able to vent your frustrations and to be able to get all of these things off of your shoulders. And as supportive as your spouse will be, he or she will never truly understand what you're going through. They've never been in your shoes unless they have, unless they're also optometrists and practice owners. But they may never have been in your shoes, and they may not really understand exactly what you're going through in terms of patient demands and pricing structures and vendor relationships and all the different things that goes with practice ownerships and managing and leading a team and all that. So you want to have other professional peers, other optometrists that you can go to who know what you're going through, who have been there, who can understand what you're talking about, and to be able to vent your frustrations and just to have a sounding board so that you know that's off your chest and someone's listening to you and understanding you. Get to know your fellow optometrists. Get involved in your local, your state, the National Optometry Association. Get involved and all of that activity, yes, helps you network with your peers, but it also just gives you a sense of ownership over your profession, and it helps you feel better and stronger about what you're doing for your patients and your profession overall. So immerse yourself in your profession. Have a good professional team in your corner. So this is tax, a legal attorney. Make sure you have a good financial advisor in your corner. Make sure you have this team of professionals to help you through everything you're going through as a new practice owner, from legal to tax to financial, making sure that you're proactively planning for all this different stuff, and they can help you avoid mistakes and pitfalls along the way that maybe you wouldn't have thought of early on. And if it makes sense, consider working with a practice cold start consultant. So that's someone like Eye Care Advisors, Acrinos. Yes, it comes with a cost, but those consultants could be so valuable in helping you to lower that learning curve early on and to help you avoid mistakes and pitfalls that you wouldn't have known about before you went through this whole process. Consider working with someone that can take you all the way from idea to doors open and everything in between and walk you through every step of the way. And that can be pretty valuable. And so make sure you have a good professional team in your corner. And as I wrap up, I just want to summarize some of the key points here, some action items. Number one, have a plan to pay for your living expenses in the first 3 years, including the projections for your practice income conservatively, but make sure you have a plan to pay for your personal expenses in the first 3 years. Number two, making sure your spouse and your family are on board with this and have good expectations. And number three, make sure you have a strong support network, both your professional peers, your fellow optometrists, and a good professional team in your corner. And then lastly, one thing I want to say is as you're thinking about this, whether to own or not, whether to cold start, or as you're planning out your optometry cold start, try to build your business as intentionally and as purposely as possible. Really think about what your vision is long-term for your practice. Who do you want to serve? How do you want to serve them? Will there be a specialty? Will there not? Think about what your role is in the practice long-term. Where do you want to spend your time? If you can think about 4 squares, a quadrant, and there's the roles, the tasks that you can do in your practice that are valuable and not valuable to the business. And you can do things that give you energy, that give you excitement, and things that take away energy from you that aren't exciting to you at all. Try to fit your role and the things you're doing in your practice and the way you're spending your time towards the things that are most valuable to your business, which is going to be some combination of patient care and ownership, management responsibilities. So the things that are most valuable to your business and the things that give you the most energy and joy and excitement in owning the business. That will probably help your business be most successful and help you get the most enjoyment and fulfillment out of this experience of building and owning a business. So try to think purposely about the role that you want to serve in the practice. Think about how many days, how much time you want to spend working in the practice as a practitioner, working on the practice as a business owner, and how much you want to spend out of the practice with your family, doing other things in your life. And with all that will help you to create a business that's purposeful, that's intentional, because your business is there to serve you. You're not there to serve the business. It is a tool for you to live out the creativity and the life that you want to live, a fulfilling life, whatever that means to you. So try to build that as intentionally as possible. With that, I want to say thank you so much again for listening. I appreciate your time and your headspace every time you're listening to these podcast episodes. If there's any questions that you have or any thoughts on anything we talked about today, shoot me an email. My email is Evon, E-V-O-N, @optometrywealth.com. If you want to learn more about me or my practice, Optometry Wealth Advisors, and how I serve optometrists nationwide, check out my website, www.optometrywealth.com. And you can also read the article I wrote about all this stuff on that website as well, about the 3 factors that can make or break your optometry cold start in our education hub and many more. So check out my website. Let me know if you have any questions or any topics you want to see on the show, featured on the show. Again, I want this to be more and more valuable to you as an optometrist, especially early on within the first half of your career or within the first half of your journey as a practice owner. So with that, I want to thank you again. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode, and take care.
Want more resources to help master your money? Check out the Education Hub on Evon's website at optometrywealth.com. Evon Mendrin is a certified financial planner and owner of Optometry Wealth Advisors, a California registered investment advisor. All opinions of Evon and his guests are their own. This show is for informational purposes only and should not be relied on for specific investment, legal, tax, or other decisions. Clients of OWA may own securities mentioned on this show.